A good Erev Shabbos to all, and we are in Tzadik Vav Amid Aleph. Tzadik Vav Amid Aleph, the Mishnah. Chavite Kohen Gadol, we said that the Kohen Gadol would bring every day. He would bring in Yisrael a flour, half in the morning, half in the afternoon. Lishasan varichasan, it's kneading and it's ordering and braiding. V'afiyasan, and it's baking bifnim, as opposed v'doches Shabbos, as opposed to as opposed to the three-way machloikis we saw yesterday regarding the lechem aponim and the shtei lechem, right? Regarding that, we had machloikis, three machloikis. According to one opinion, it was done. Lishasim was outside, baking was inside. According to Rabbi Yehuda, both was inside. According to Rabbi Shimon, neither was inside. This is everyone agrees this is all inside. It had to be in a klishares. Rashi brings the guys the chatzi that was a klishares, so it would be magdashit. If it did it Erev Shabbos, or you would go ahead, you'd have a problem of lina. Memele it's Teicha Shabbos as well. So everything was done inside. However, tchinasan, the grinding of the grain, v'harakadasan, and the sifting of the grain, ain't a Teicha Shabbos. They're not Teicha Shabbos. Klal Omer Rabbi Akiva. Kol malacha she'efshar la'asoisa me'erev Shabbos, any malacha that's possible to do before Shabbos, ain't a doiches Shabbos. It's not doiches Shabbos. U'sheyefshar la'asoisa me'erev Shabbos, such as lisha, aricha, and afiyah, doiches Shabbos. Okay, so that's the dimar chavite kohen gadol. So again, contrasting to the shtei lechem and the lechem aponim, which we had in machlokes, Kuli Alma seem to agree that the chavite kohen gadol, half in the morning, half in the afternoon, was everything was done inside. And on Shabbos. Kol menachos sheyesh ben ma'aser kli bifnim, all menachos yesh ben ma'aser kli bifnim, ve'im ben ma'aser kli b'chutz. Right? You have to go ahead and lolush what it means b'kli, a kli shares. It has to be lolush b'kli shares. Rashi and Daf Yomi. It has to be lolush b'kli shares inside. This is by the menachos. Shtei alechem. Now we saw yesterday the halachas of kneading and setting it up and braiding it and baking it. We now going to see the physical dimensions of the shtei lechem and the physical dimensions of the lechem aponim. And today, they don't spend a lot of time on the shtei lechem. They spend most of the time on the lechem aponim. They spend most of the time on the lechem aponim. So shtei lechem. What were the dimensions of the shtei lechem? Orchan, the length was shiva tfachim. It was 7 tfachim, right? V'rechavon dalet tfachim. It's about 25 and a half inches. So it's a much a 2 foot long challah. V'rechavon, and its width was about a foot. 12 was a foot, so 14 and a half. You get an idea. This was a greise gekochte. Yeah, it was as we say in Yiddish, it was a shtick. It was a shtick. The karnoisaha and its karnois arba etzbois were 4 etzbois or 1 tefach. The 4 etzbois and a tefach. I think the reason it doesn't say a tefach is because the lechem aponim, it's going to use the lashon of etzbois, that measurement. The mela they're using it over here as well. In other words, guys, if 4 etzbois is a tefach and you just gave me the dimensions in tefachim, why are you switching to etzbois, right? You said tefach. Why are you switching to etzbois? I think it's Agav Seifa, which we're going to see in a second, and there you had to say it's boys. Okay. Lechem aponim, and then we're going to spend most of the time on this. Orchan yut tefachim, its length was 10 tefachim, v'rachban 8 tefachim. And everyone agrees to these dimensions. It was 10 by what? By 5. The karnoisav, and its horns, sheva etzbois. And its horns were 7 etzbois. Now, 7 etzbois is there are 4 etzbois, so you see it's 1 3/4, right? It's 4 etzbois. 7 is 1 3/4. So memela, guys, you couldn't give the dimensions here in tefachim. You gave the dimension etzbois memela before. Now, what do you mean karnoisav? So I give you with permission of Gedalia Zlotowitz. Here you go. Its dimensions were. It's 5 by 7, and here's the etzbois. You see, these are considered the horns. These are 7 etzbois. So it's 5 tefachim by 2.5 tefachim, right? It's five, the amount. Yud tefachim, and it was 5 tefachim. So it was, fellas, 5, 2.5, and 2.5 gives you 10. Guys, it says 10, right? It says 10 by 5. Now, if it's 10 by 5, where's the 10 over here? So this, I'm giving you the heads up. It was folded over. Unfold this over here, and this over here. You get 2.5 over here, 2.5 over here, which is 5, and plus 5 is 10. Got it? You see? Got it. Now, it was folded over, these corners were folded over, and there's the 1 3/4 tefachim. How are we doing, guys? That was clear? It was clear, yes? Good. Just wanted to make sure. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Shaloi Tita, Rabbi Yehuda says that you shouldn't make a mistake between the lechem aponim and shtei lechem, is Zadad Yahaz. Zadad is Zayin, Dalid. It was 7 tfachim by Dalid tfachim by 4 karnoisav. That's the shtei lechem. The lechem aponim were Yud 10, Hey by 5, and the karnois were Zayin. So Rabbi Yehuda, very interesting. You don't get often in a Mishnah a mnemonic to remember, right, guys? How seldom do you get it? When you think of Rabbi Yehuda Omer, you think of that Sach Hadash Be'achab, fellas, by the way, right? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda said, so it's interesting that Rabbi Yehuda gives you a mnemonic. He gives you a mnemonic by the Makkas. He gives you a mnemonic over here as well. Ben Zayma Omer, Ben Zayma says, V'nasata ala shulchan lechem aponim, lefonai tamid, and lechem panim sheyeh like pnim, right? They should have what? It should have a panim. Rashi says 2 pshatim. Says Rashi. Let's see Rashi. Panim sheyeh like panim. The funais. What does panim mean? Walls. It means walls. Lishnachrina sheyeh like pinim. It should have pinim, which are zavias, corners. The hein akronos, and those are the kronos. So there's 2 pshatim. Either it should have lechem and panim should have walls, or it should have what? It should have these corners that we saw. Baruch Hashem. So far, we saw in the Mishnah, the Chaviti Kohen Gadol, and we're getting the dimensions of the Shtei Lechem and the dimensions what of the Lechem Aponim. And now, we're going to put the Lechem Aponim on the Shulchan, guys. We're going to put the Lechem Aponim on the Shulchan. Good? Now, what are the dimensions of the Shulchan? Shmois Chav Hey, Pasach Chav Gimel. V'asisa Shulchan. You should make a Shulchan. Atzei Shitim of Geifer Holtz? No. Shitim is no. Atzei Shitim. Amasayim Archai. Its length is 2 tvachim, is 2 amis. V'ama Rachbai. V'ama v'chetzi kamasai. So it's 2 by 1 by 1.5. 2 by 1 and 1.5. So guys, let's do some math. I got 2 and 1. Yes? How many amis are in the tefach? There is a machloikis, either 6 or 5. Either 6 or 5. There's a machloikis, how many tefachim there are in an amma. So if there are 6 tefachim in an amma, it's 12 by 6, right? Yeah, it's 2 by 1. So it's 1 amma will be 6 tefachim, and the other way will be 12 tefachim. If there are 5 tefachim in the amma, then it's 10 by 5. Good? Now, if everyone agrees that the lechem aponim is 10 by 5, we're going to have to fit this 10 by 5 on the shulchan of 10 by 5. You're not going to have any leftover room, fellas. You're not going to have any leftover room. The way the dimensions you put it, right? So, guys, what's going to happen? Look, take a look. My shulchan is, take a look at me. My shulchan is 10, let's say. And my lechem aponim is 10. But 10 is the length, and I'm putting it on the width. The width is 5. So I'm going to have 10 on 5. I'm going to have 5 in the middle, and I'm going to fold up 2.5. That's the picture I showed you. That's going to be 10. If on the other hand it's six, so it's six, and you have it's 12 by 6. So I'm putting on something 5 by 5. I'm going to have two extra tfachim. Because again, I'm putting the width on the length. If the width is 5 and 5 and everyone agrees it is, it's 10, and I have a width of, and I have a length of 12, I'm going to have two extra, right? Good. In addition, if it's 6 across and this is 10, then going up is only going to be 2 rather than 2.5. Right? You're gonna have the five is the given. Everyone agrees on the five. Am I putting five on a table that is five tfachim, or I'm putting on a table that is six tfachim? If I'm putting on a table of six tfachim, I'm going to have four left over. If I'm putting on a table of five tfachim, I'm going to have five left over. So I'll divide it by two. So that makes a difference of how much it's going to go up. Is it going to go up 2.5, or it's going to go up two? Okay, I think we did this once before, but again, it's good to repeat. Okay, now we have all this information. Hashulchan Orcha Yud v'Rochbei Chamesh. Again, this is based on the cheshbon of five tfachim, guys, right? Five tfachim per amma, because we know it's 2 by 1. Lechem aponim Orcha Yud v'Rochbei Hey. Naslain Orcha Keneged Rochbei Shel Shulchan will put the width of the lechem aponim keneged the length of the shulchan. The koifel, and I will literally double, but I saw a girsa fellas, they bring down with a kuf, couple, with a kuf, is to fold over. That, tefchaim mertzah mikan, tefchaim mertzah mikan, you can get 2.5 on each side, geschmack. Nimsa orchaim memali rachbei shel shulchan, the length will fill up the rachav of the shulchan. The length, guys, of the lechem aponim will fill up 5, right? And then it goes up 2.5 on the side. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Again, they have 12 by 6. Now again, they can't argue on the amma of the shulchan. It's a mafurish pasuk. It's 2 by 1 by 1.5. What they can argue on is how much tfachim there are in an amma. Like Rabbi Yehuda, there is 5. Like Rabbi Meir, there's 6. Like Rabbi Meir, there's going to be 6. So therefore, Archa Yud Beis, V'rach by Vav, Lechem Aponim Archa Yud, V'rach by Hey. The Lechem Aponim is 10 by 5. So you're putting a 10 on a 6 wide, guys. You're putting 10 on a 6 wide. That takes up 6 out of the 10. Now you have left over 4. So, Hey Noisin Archa Keneged Rachba Shel Shulchan, Kaifel Tivchayim Mikan, Utivchayim Mikan. You're going to have how much? You're going to have 2 going up on one side and 2 going on the other side. And as opposed to Reb Yehuda, where you're not going to have anything place extra on the shulchan, Revach Tefchaim Revach be'emtza, and you're going to have 2 tfachim left in the middle, fellas. If my shulchan is 12 and my lechem aponim is 10, right? I have 2 tfachim left over. I'll leave that open in the middle, and I'll put the bezichin of the levoina on that area. Like Reb Yehuda, that you have no extra space. That's the opinion where you're going to put the bezichim on top of the lechem aponim, right? We said al can mean it can be on, or like this sheet, the al it can be next to, right? It can be next to the lechem aponim. You're putting on the shulchan itself. So you have tefchaim rebach behem. So kedei shetei haruach min hasheves behem. You know, you have a space here and the area where the wind be able to blow to keep it fresh. Ain't Simchan al Anes, right? You're saying it's hot. That there was a week later, ain't Simchan al Anes. You got to do what you got to do. You put bread on top of each other, and you don't have space. It's going to get, as Kenny would say, fashimelt, right? Fashimelt. That's the lashon. Abishaloimer sham hoyinoistim shnei bezichel levoina. They would put the 2 bezichel levoina over there. Shalachem upon him. Amuloi v'lekvarnema v'nasata al hamareches levoina saka. You put on the marach, it's mashma on it itself. Amulahem arikvarnema v'olav mate menashe. It says mate menashe was next to Ephraim. Guys, alav is in Pashto Midbar. alav means next to Ephraim, so it doesn't mean on Ephraim. So huadin, when it says al, it doesn't mean on; it means next to. Okay, so now we have machloikis between Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Meir, exactly how the lechem aponim was situated on the shulchan. Snifim shalzav hayusham. There was snifim of, they were boards like, they were supported. Guys, remember we have the boards going up. They supported it. Now, on these boards, Benji will appreciate this. You had, we have this same barbecue. So you have on the barbecue, you have these projectiles coming out where you can suspend the ashpan. So in these boards, they had projectiles that would come out because on that you were going to put the rods, the konim, the rods that separated the lechem aponim from the lechem aponim. Again, if it was a flat surface, you would not have anything to go ahead and put it on. But since you had these psulim coming out, these projections coming out, you were able to put the boards on not the boards, the konim on top of those things. So it says there were mefutzalim, these projections merishayim coming out. They able to be saimich 6 over here and 6 over there. The chavches konim, and there were 28 konim, kechatzi kana chalul. And that was this kechatzi kana chalul. It was hollow. Arba esrei l'seder zeh, v'yudal l'seder zeh. Out of 28, we divided up 14 to 14. Good. Again, we can discuss all of this, but you get an idea. Now, leisider konim, v'loy netilasam, the placing of the konim, nor the removal of the konim, doiches Shabbos. The Gemara is going to say, malacha. What's the malacha? What did you do wrong? We're going to say it's a gezerah of bona, guys. It's it's rabbinical in nature. It's the rabbanon that if we go ahead and allow you to remove or put them back, it's like being soiser uboina, like you're destroying or you're building, and therefore the rabbanon they said you can't do it. So therefore it wasn't doicha Shabbos. So interestingly enough, Ella nichnis me'erev Shabbos, erev Shabbos they would go in. And again, it was on the shulchan the whole week. There was the lechem aponim were residing on top of these konim the whole week. Erev Shabbos they would go in. The shoimtoi they would slip them out. For noisnoi la'orcha shel shulchan, and they would put it for the length of the shulchan. The machloikas whether they put it on the shulchan itself or on the floor next to the shulchan. These put these rods. Again, you had 28 rods. Kolak, and that's what they did. And then Motzei Shabbos, on the new lechem aponim, they come and they'd slip them back in. Kol hakelim shoy b'migdash archon la'archa shel bayis. All the kelim in the Beis HaMikdash went to the length of the bayis, meaning they ran east to west. Guys, picture the Mizbeach ran north-south, and the Beis HaMikdash went east-west. Now, we had a machlokes, by the way, by Menorah. Guys, look at Tosfos. Kol hakelim shoy b'migdash. The second Tosfos down. Kol hakelim shoy b'migdash archon la'archa shel bayis. Says Tosfos, b'Gemara Tanya chutz mei aroin, with the exception of the aroin, she'archa l'rach b'shel bayis. The shulchan, the aron went north-south. Ubishulchan u'menorah shel archa l'rach b'shel bayis. Ubishulchan u'menorah pligi Rebbe Eliezer. And regarding the shulchan and the menorah, we have machlokes in Rebbe and Rebbe Eliezer, Rebbe Shimon. Masnisan k'Rebbe da'amar mizrach u'ma'ariv munachem. So this one that says all the kalim, with the exception of the aron, is according to Rebbe, because Rebbe Eliezer, Rebbe Shimon, he disagrees. Okay, so you should know that it's not so pashut that everything ran east-west. There are different days regarding the aron, different days regarding the shulchan, different days regarding the menorah, different days regarding menorah. It's very interesting. You know what the machlok is predicated upon? If the menorah was like this, right, then you got the schmutz going on the wall. If it was like this, it's farther away from the wall. If it's like this, then it's closer to the wall. If it's like this, it's farther away from the wall. So it's interesting. Gemara in Yuma discusses it. Okay, guys, good. Now that was the Mishnah. By the way, that was the Mishnah. That was one long Mishnah. Okay, up to the Gemara. Okay, Rabbi Avi, we're up to Tzadik Vav Amid Aleph, the Gemara on a Mishnah. It says Kol Menachos Yesh Behem Maisa Kli B'Pnim. All Menachos, no Shaila. He had Maisa Kli Sharis was Mekadosh inside. Shalu es Rebbe. Zuminayin. How do you know that? All the Menachos. Amalahem, they told Rabbi, how are you Omer, Vayomer Alai, this is speaking about Yecheskel. But in the Yecheskel, we have the pasuk in Yecheskel that's describing the third bias. So the Gemara is describing the third bias. So Rebbe, so the Talmidim Shalu es Rebbe, not Rebbe es, but the Talmidim es Rebbe, right? And Amalahem, Rebbe told them the following: Vayomer Eli, and Cheskel says, "Zeh hamakam asher yivashu sham haKohanim." This is the place where the Kohanim will go ahead and cook. So let's change the girsa. Esa asham ve'esa chatas. Put the asham first. Asher yoifu esa mincha. They will bake the mincha. The vilti hoitzi ala chatza chitzoina, in order not to go ahead and take it outside. So what do we have? Dumya the asham v'chatas. Ma chatas asham tunim kli. Af mincha nami tunim kli. Just like to cook in asham, you need a kli. So to the mincha, you need a kli. So it's the comparison. We don't know from the Torah proper, but we know from the Navi Yecheskel, this din of the mincha, that you need a kli, because it's comparison to the asham and the chatas. Hashulchan archu asara. The shulchan was 10. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ledivrei ha'omer tavchaim u'mechza kaifo. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who says it went up 2.5. Nimsa shulchan mikadesh chamisha esrei tavchaim l'mayla. The divrei ha'omer tavchaim, the one kaifol that it was only 2, not 2.5. Nimsa shulchan mikadesh yud beis tavchaim l'mayla. Guys, you had six going up, right? On 2, you didn't have 12 going up. You had 6 and 6. So you had 6 times 2.5 gives you 15. 6 times 2.5 gives 15. Like the man the Omar, that it was only 2 is 12. What does it mean, Mekadesh? We said the Shulchan's Magdish the Lechem. The Shulchan's Magdish the Lechem. Yes, Nassim. Yes.
2.5, 15.
6 times.
12 and 3. Sorry, my mistake.
It's okay. Benji says it's not okay.
Okay, Rabbi, can he use a calculator for the test, please?
Kenny, just because you're one of these math guys, listen, I understand him. Nothing. Okay, so it's Geschmack. Now, guys, why did we say? We said that it's Mekadesh, the Shulchan's Mekadesh, the bread. So the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan is commenting based upon the dimensions of Rabbi Yehuda. It's 15, 6 times 2.5. Like the dimensions of Rabbi Meir, it's only 12. It's only 12 because 6 times 2. Right? Okay, now the Gemara is going to ask, I can add height. There are different things there to add height. Why don't I take into account the konim? I mean, it's not one on top of the other. You got reeds going through, right? The rods. The rods will take up space. So the Gemara asks right away. Says the Gemara, ve'ika konim. Says the Gemara, konim shakui mishakeelahu. Says Rashi, 4 lines up from the bottom. Mishakeelahu. Pigimois oisa belechem. They made a pagam, kind of literally a blemish, but a hollowed out area in the bread. Ba'oit shahaya batsek, when it was still dough. Ve'akonim hoyim mishukoyim behem. And the konim were recessed in them. Ve'enom magbiyim alechem. So in other words, if you look at the lechem like this, fellas, if this is the lechem and this is the rod, right? So there, it's going ahead wide, and it's you have a space. But if the rod is immersed in the bread, right? Even it's immersed in the bread, so it's not taking up any space. It's not lifting it up. So the height basically remains the same because the displacement is the same since the rod is in the lechem itself. Okay, now my timer mishum afushe lechem. So what's the reason we're putting it in, right? So the reason why we're putting the rods is that the bread should not spoil. Soif kama afish lechem. In other words, if you're telling me that you're immersing the rod and it's not elevating the lechem, so what did you gain? It's going to spoil. The reason it's spoiling is because it's one on top of the other. You're telling me that you put rods in. Fred the Gemara, you put rods in, and the rod is immersed in the lechem. So it's one on top of the other. It gets spoiled. And the answer is, says the Gemara, demagule porta. It's not totally immersed. It elevates it a little bit. Fred the Gemara vikahu porta. So in our consideration of the airspace of the shulchan being mekadesh, why are we taking into account the elevation machmas the kanim? Says the Gemara kibud lehavi tefach. Since it did not even go ahead and ascend to a tefach, like chashav lei. So in other words, the denominations we consider tefachim, 15 tefachim, 12 tefachim. If it didn't go to a tefach, so inachinami, it's 15 and a bit, it's 12 and a bit. Good. Fred Gemara ve'ikah bezichin. What isn't it magdish the bezichin? The bezichin, guys, the bezichin are, and that is raised above, correct? Says Gemara, bezichin begavad the lechem havi yasvei, hadi lechem havi kaimei. Guys, so the bezichin, guys, here's the lechem upon him. Look at me. This is like the mandi amma that it goes like this, and the bezichin were what in that. In other words, this is like the mandi omar that it wasn't on the table itself, like not Abishol. In other words, this is like the mandi amma, like Rabbi Yehuda, that it took up the only place you could put it. So if I'm putting this in over here, and it's not coming up any higher, so picture the bottle as the bezichin, and it's not coming up any higher. Okay, here's a nice kasha. Rashi, guys, Rashi is bothered by something. Look at Rashi. V'iko bezichin, the bottom Rashi, guys. Kashali. Amai parachachi. What are you asking? The shulchan le mekadesh le bezichin. What was mekadesh le bezichin? The frankincense. Guys, l'chayr, the fact that it's a klishares. Bishlem elechem upon him. I needed the shulchan to be mekadesh. Masha'en kain over here. What's be mekadesh it? The kli, not the airspace. So even if it is higher, who cares? Even if it's higher, who cares? So Rashi says, I don't understand the Gemara. Rashi just gives a kasha, he doesn't understand the Gemara. Okay, there's a vague taisvis over here. Let's do the vague taisvis. Vague means that I don't understand it totally, okay? That's what vague means. Bobby Orbach told me he learned by the Rosh Hashiva before me for a very short period of time. And he came over to Rosh Hashiva and he said, Ich habe kasha of taisvis. Rosh Hashiva looked at him and was, Vifel mol hat gelernt der taisvis. How many times did you learn the taisvis? So he goes, Tzvei mol. He goes, just gelernt der taisvis Tzvei mol. And there was a kasha of taisvis. So then he said, Rabbi, ich verstehe nicht the taisvis. Rosh Hashiva said, oh. You hear the difference, guys. A kasha of taisvis. We're approaching this taisvis with that in mind. Says Mavika Bezichin, Hiksha Bekuntris. The last taisvis on the page. Amai parachachi. The shulchan lemekachelu, the Bezichin. It's not the shulchan, it's the keli, right? Venira the loy kosher midi. It's not shver at all. The ha'amina perakama, the koimitz mincha mikli shal gabe karka. You could be koimitz a mincha from a kli that's on the ground. Why? Shekeim watzinu besilik bazichin. When you remove the bazichin, mashma dahabe ki koimitz me al gabe shulchan. In other words, just like taking a kli from the ground is like taking the bazichin off the koim. Like, guys, this is the shulchan. Here's the bezichin. It's like when I do this, I'm doing a koimitz. So you see that when the bezichin is on top of the shulchan, it has the din of like being part of the shirayat, like the part of the mincha. And when you take it off, it's like you're doing the kamitza. So there is an inyan of kedusha. It's all gemished together because the Torah calls it you removing the kamitza. So I think that Tais is telling you, what does Makadish mean? That will view the vazichin as part of the lechem upon him as a whole. And then when you take it off, it's like you're doing kamitza. So memela, you need kedusha. It's part and parcel. I think that's what Tais is saying. Okay? Fred Gemara. Vika kronos. You have the horns of the lechem upon him, or the corners. It says, "Kronos legabe the lechem kaifilahu, v'lechem aili noyach v'lechem alayu noyach lei." Guys, take a look at the picture. The horns are not taking up, they're not taking up any height. That we, in other words, this 2.5 remains 2.5 because the chronos, they're inverted towards the middle and the other lechem rested upon it. So the mela, it's geschmack, yeah? On the base. The ikka miskarto, you have the miskeres, the type of lattice work that was around, the type of fence around it. Now the havamina is that so it was above, and miskeres was above. It was a tefach high, so therefore it should be 16, not 15. The shulchan, if the miskeres is on the lip of the shulchan, right, then it's going to add to the height of the shulchan. So, and for the Gemara, that cheshbon that we just made, the brisa that we just made, is command the Amad the miskarte lemata hoisa. There's a machlokes fellas. Where was the miskeres? Guys, picture my hand. This is the shulchan, right? One pshat was over here above, another pshat was below. So if it's above, you're going to add another tefach, another amma, a tefach. Excuse me, another tefach. If it's over here, you're going to add. It doesn't add anything. So the brisa that said that it's 15 is going like man the Amad that it was below. Well, the man the Amad miskarte lemaila hoisa. Peruked have mifarta. They would bend it outward. In other words, even if it was above, it was the lechem was inside of it, so there was no height. It didn't add any height. It was like surrounding the lechem and that up to a tefach. So it wasn't, understand, it wasn't resting a tefach, added a tefach to it. It was the lechem point was immersed in it, so therefore it didn't add anything to it. Keditanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer. Snifim, said Rabbi Yossi, there were not these props, these boards that we had, they weren't there. It was the misgeres of the shulchan that kept it on the table. They told Rabbi Yehuda, they told Rabbi Yossi, misgeres lamata haisa. The misgeres was below, so how can you tell me it supported it? Rabbi Yochanan, ledivrei ha'oimim misgeres lamata, according to the one that said the misgeres was below, okay, outside. We know for something Kabal Tuma, a Kli Eitz, guys. A Pshute Kli Eitz. A Kli Eitz that does not have a base kibble is not Makabal Tuma. Okay? Over here, you're telling me the Miskeres was below. That means there was no base kibble, that the Shulchan was a flat surface. Rashi learns that when it means that it's a tablet misageres, that you'd be able to put something over here, and if you'd invert it, you'd be able to put something over here. On both sides, you'll be able to go ahead and put it. On both sides, you'll be able to put it, okay? That's what you're saying. Both sides. Okay, I have to take this call. Thank you. Okay, so guys, according to Mandi Omar, that the Miskeres was below, there was no base kibble. Like the Mandi Omar, the Miskeres was above, you have a base kibble because you have that tefach that's above it that creates a receptacle area. But like the Mandi Omar below, now, the assumption is you're taking for granted that the shulchan was tameh, that the shulchan could be makabel tama. Question, fellas, and we're going to see the Gemara is going to have, if it's pshute kli eitz, if it's a kli eitz that is without a base kibble, how can it be makabel tama? So you have to say that an area of this size that is so large, even without a base kibble, could be makabel tama. So that's what that's what we're saying right now. So it says, let's see it one more time. So we have machlokes was miskeres above and miskeres was below. Okay. Keditanya Rabbi Yossi lehoyusham snifim el miskartei shel shulchan ma'amedes alechem. Now, Amrullah miskeres lamata hoyse. It was below, it wasn't above. Now, Rabbi Yochanan says the Amar Rabbi Yochanan ledivrei oimer. Like the man the Amru says miskeres lamata. Those are the oimer, the ones who said to Rabbi Yossi hoyse tavla misapeches tameya. Then a tavla that could be used on both sides. This Rashi's pshat, right? It's tameya. The divrei oimer loy Rabbi Yossi miskeres lamaila hoyse. Tavla misapeches tibayilach. Whether a tabla that's misapeches is a shaila. In other words, you can't be pushed to the shaila. Guys, geschmack. Loit demand the Omar. Here's my shulchan. Here's my miskeres. Loit demand the Omar that miskeres was below. So that means my top is totally what? Is totally without a receptacle area. And you're telling me it's tame. So there's no shaila. A tavla that's misapeches to be used both ways in makabel. However, later mani omar the opinion that the miskeres was above, now you have a base kibel, right? You have an area, you have a base kibel over here. So then it's a shaila, then you can't be placed the shaila whether a tavla misapeches is makabel tom or not. Because you don't have a source for it. If it's miskeres is below, you have the shulchan as a source. If the miskeres is above, then it's a base kibel and you have no source. That's what the Gemara is making
Right.
that is
Well,
yes.
he spoke this out a lot of times. So whether the shulchan was b'churba l'kaka, if it got tummy.
Yeah, we're going to do it in a second. We're going to do it in a second. The Gemara is going to do it again. The Gemara is going to do it again. Not that it was mechubah, it doesn't move, right? Not mechubah l'karka, but it doesn't move. Now, mechlal the shulchan bar kibulit tumahu. This is a given that the shulchan is what it can be mekabel tumah. This is a given that the shulchan can be mekabel tumahu. 1 second. Why do you say that? Kli eitz ha'asli lenachasu. It's a kli eitz that is made not to move. It's a kli eitz that stays in its place, right? V'chol kli eitz ha'asli lenachas ein mekabel tumah. My timer. Dumya de sak beinin to mekabel tuma, it has to be similar to a sackcloth. Masak metaltel mole v'rekon, just like a sackcloth can be carried whether it's full or empty. Avkol metaltel mole v'rekon, and the shulchan wasn't carried. What would you tell me, fellas? Didn't they travel? Didn't they travel? Good. Taisvis. Kol kliyetz asen nachas. The mashem misalkim masay besilik masois ein zev tiltel kiven de mekomo kavua. In other words, you view the oil moyed as moving along. So, in other words, it stayed in its place and you just happened to move. If it's in its place and you move it out of its place, then it's metaltel. But in other words, you can view what would a good view be? A ship. You can view a ship like the water is moving it along, but it's stationary. I think the Gemara we have this such a shaila, right? Or no, the ship is actually moving, right? So the same thing. So the Taisa says that it moves b'mkomo is not tiltal. Tiltal is when you're in its place and you move it. Says the Gemara, that's in fact the case. So you want to know shulchan am metaltal moli v'reikom k'dreish lakish dam reish lakish. My dechsiv it says ala shulchan hatahar. When it says on the shulchan at-tahar, when it says the word tahar, tahar mechal de'ikatame. Ella, melamed, shemagbiyin oisai la'oile regalim, the people be oile regel, and they would take out what? They would take out the shulchan, umarim ba'lechem, and they would see the lechem. V'yoimim lehem, ruchi bastum uflei hamakom. Look how dear you are to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kedir Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Where do you see how dear you are? The Omer Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, nes gadol naseh b'lechem aponim. A tremendous nest took place in the lechem upon him. Silukoi kisiduroi. The putting it on, removing it, is the same way as you put it on. Shener malasim lechem cham b'yom hilachchoi. Meaning, it was, when you put it on, it was hot, and when you took it off, it was hot. So they would see, the Gemara in Yuma says, the Ritva in Yuma guys, they would see the steam rising off it. Or else, how would you know it's hot? How would you know it's hot? They'd see the steam, and now, here's the question. When did they take it off? What day? They took it off on Shabbos, correct? Siduroi. So this must be according to the Madiyama who says what? That it was baked on Shabbos. Right? It must be like the Madiyama that it was baked on Shabbos. Look, twice who says it. Siluka kisiduroi. Hainu l'Madiyama afiyasai doicha Shabbos. The Tana Mekadesh. Because the Tana is a Kli Kodesh, and it would be lean if it was baked on Friday. Well, the Madiyama ain't if you asked the Shabbos, because according to Madiyama, it was baked on Friday, right? It's not like a Shabbos. So then what? You'd have to say it's done outside. It's not like a Shabbos, and therefore what? It wasn't hot. Again, the same way it was hot when you put it on, it's hot when you get it off. The only way to get it hot when you put it on is when what? The afiyah was on Shabbos. Now, we spoke out of Briskerov, guys. Why didn't they just take out the lechem upon him? Why didn't they just take out the lechem upon him? Why did they take out the shulchan? You want to show them. Says the Brisker of Geschmack. It's not the lechem upon him that was hot. It was the fact that it was on the shulchan that it was hot. The shulchan gave, guys, the shulchan gave the lechem upon him its heat. In other words, that ness wasn't ness in the lechem upon him. It was a ness when it was on the shulchan. The shulchan was the conduit of parnasa to the world. I spoke out once. The why of all the things when people oil the regel they bring out the shulchan. And I heard, I know I saw it b'shem the Tzayin Kotchim, but I couldn't find it. With the Shem Rabbi Chaim Shor, the Toras Chaim. He said that you go up to the regel, you worked hard, you be over the regel, everyone is worried about their panasa. And what would you see? You see the shulchan with hot bread. Where did the panasa of the conduit of panasa to the world? It came through the shulchan, bread, the basic sustenance of life, right? Before gluten-free. Right? Everyone was like, you had bread. And that was the basic thing. And so you saw that Parnas is up to the Bnei Shloim. If you were Zaycha, you believed in that, you saw hot bread. If you didn't believe it, you saw a week old bread. A week old bread is nothing special. Now the next piece of Gemara extends all the way to the Amid, halfway down the Amid Aleph. So I'm going to hold off on that. That we'll see it as Hashem Mitzvah Shabbos.